At family dinner, my brother scoffed like he'd just solved world hunger. Some people just have to feel needed, even when they're clearly not. He snorted so smug you'd think he paid his own rent. Everyone looked at me. I raised my glass and said, "Good news. Then I'm not." Then I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, and froze the account that was quietly funding his life. 5 minutes later, he was pale, stammering like a kid who lost his lunch money. My mom whispered, "What did you just do?" Hey Reddit, longtime lurker, first-time poster. This happened over the past year, and I'm finally ready to share, because holy crap, did karma deliver in spectacular fashion. Fair warning, this is long, but I promise it's worth it. Also, change some details for privacy, but the core story is 100% real. I've been debating whether to post this for months, but after reading so many stories on here about entitled family members getting their comeuppance, I figured you guys would appreciate this one. It's got everything. Freeloading relatives, fake entrepreneurs, systematic revenge, and a very satisfying ending where the bad guys get exactly what they deserve. Some background first, because context matters. I, 32, female, busted my rear end to get where I am. I grew up poor in a Rust Belt town where half the factories closed before I graduated high school. Dad worked double shifts as a machinist. Mom cleaned offices at night just to keep food on the table. I was the nerdy kid who actually cared about grades while everyone else was getting high behind the gym. I spent 4 years eating ramen noodles and studying to get my construction management degree. Then I worked my way up from assistant project coordinator to running million-dollar commercial builds. No family money, no connections, just grinding it out every single day. Now I make $89,000 a year managing construction projects for a regional firm. Not rich by any means, but comfortable. I drive a paid-off pickup truck, own a decent house, and have about $75,000 in savings because I'm actually responsible with money. My brother Danny, complete opposite story. Danny's 3 years older, but acts like he's still in high school, peaked as quarterback on our terrible team, and has been chasing that glory ever since. Never went to college, bounced between construction jobs and warehouse work, then met Jessica 5 years ago. Jessica is everything wrong with entitled people rolled into one perfectly fake package. Hair extensions that cost more than most people's car payments. Nails so long she can't do actual work. Instagram full of entrepreneur and boss babe nonsense despite never holding a real job. She sunk her claws into Danny when he was making decent money at a tire shop. Within 6 months, she convinced him he was too good for manual labor and should start his own business. What business? She'd figure it out later. That started the entrepreneur phase. First, a lawn care service that failed because Jessica refused to do physical work and Danny couldn't handle it alone. They bought a $3,000 commercial mower on credit, printed business cards, and Jessica made an Instagram page for Thompson Lawn Solutions. She was supposed to handle marketing and customer service while Danny did the actual work. Turns out marketing meant posting aesthetic photos of perfectly manicured lawns that weren't even theirs. And customer service meant getting annoyed when clients called during her yoga classes. The business lasted 3 months before they realized Danny couldn't physically handle 15 lawns by himself, especially when Jessica refused to even answer the phone. Then car flipping, which failed because neither knew anything about cars. Danny would buy damaged vehicles from auctions, thinking he could fix them up and resell for profit. Problem was, he's not a mechanic, and Jessica's idea of helping was picking paint colors. They lost about $8,000 on 3 cars that ended up costing more to repair than they were worth. Then some protein powder pyramid scheme that collapsed, because, well, it was a pyramid scheme. Jessica was convinced she could build a team of other girls selling supplements through social media. She spent $2,000 on initial inventory and managed to sell exactly 12 containers, mostly to family members who felt sorry for her. Every failure was someone else's fault. Bad customers, wrong timing, unfair competition. Never once did they look in the mirror and think maybe they were the problem. About 11 months ago, Danny called me sobbing like a child. Not upset, literally crying with that ugly, snotty crying that makes it hard to understand what someone's saying. He said they were getting evicted and didn't know what to do. This was the first I'd heard they were even behind on rent. Turns out they'd been living beyond their means for months. Their rent was $1,150 monthly for a 2-bedroom apartment in the trendy part of town with exposed brick walls, granite countertops, and a fitness center. Way nicer than anything they could afford. But Jessica insisted they deserved it for her brand image and couldn't be seen living somewhere cheap. Image was everything to her. She'd rather be broke in a nice apartment than comfortable in a modest one. They were 3 months behind, over $5,500 in the hole. The landlord had already filed eviction papers, and they had less than a week to pay up or get out. Danny had been hiding the notices from Jessica, hoping he could figure something out before she found out. Meanwhile, Jessica was still posting Instagram stories about their blessed life and amazing home, like nothing was wrong. "Just this once, sis," Danny begged through the tears. "Just until I get back on my feet. I've got some opportunities lined up. There's this manager position at a sporting goods store, and Jessica's got a lead on some social media work." The opportunities turned out to be a part-time Best Buy job he quit after 2 weeks, because Jessica said retail was beneath them. I should have said no. I should have told him to downsize like every other adult, but he played the family card. And I'm apparently an idiot who thought blood meant something. So, I started paying their rent every month, $1,950 straight from my savings while they lived in luxury. And Jessica posted Instagram stories about her blessed life and amazing boyfriend who provides for her. Not once did either say thank you. Danny would text, "Got it," when payments went through, like I owed him money. Jessica acted like I didn't exist unless she needed something else, and there was always something else. Groceries because they were tight this week. Car repairs when Danny's truck broke down. Emergency vet bills for their designer dog, always presented as crises with implied threats that they'd be homeless if I didn't help. 11 months of this. 11 months of subsidizing 2 grown adults, too proud to work, but not too proud to take my money. Around month 8, Jessica decided my generosity needed conditions attached. What started as occasional comments became regular critiques of my lifestyle and spending habits. It started with passive-aggressive observations about how I must be doing really well financially to afford helping them so much. Then suggestions about how I could optimize my budget to provide even more assistance. She'd make comments about my truck payments, my mortgage, my grocery shopping, like she was conducting a financial audit of my life to see where I could cut corners to give them more money. "You eat out a lot for a single woman," she'd say while scrolling through my Facebook photos. "If you meal prepped like me, you could probably save $300 a month. That would really help with our utilities." Or, "Do you really need that big house all to yourself? You could get a smaller place and use the difference to help family." The audacity was breathtaking. This woman, who hadn't contributed a dime to household expenses in almost a year, was critiquing my financial choices and suggesting ways I could sacrifice more to support her lifestyle. One day, I was dropping off groceries. I'd bought them organic produce, premium meats, expensive snacks that Jessica had specifically requested, and she gives me grief about my truck. "You know, if you got something more fuel efficient, you'd save enough on gas to help with our utilities too," she says, not even looking up from her phone where she's editing selfies with some filter that makes her look like a completely different person. I just stared at her. This woman, who hadn't paid for anything in 8 months, who was currently eating food I'd purchased, living in an apartment I was paying for, was giving me financial advice about my vehicle. "I like my truck," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I'm just saying, if you really wanted to help family, you'd make sacrifices too." "We're all struggling here," she replied, finally looking up from her phone with this condescending expression like she was explaining basic math to a child. "We're all struggling." This, from someone who'd spent $200 on her nails that same week. Money they didn't have. Money that should have gone to bills I wasn't already covering. But somehow we were all in this together, all making equal sacrifices. The worst part, Danny sat there on the couch nodding along like she made perfect sense. Not defending me, not pointing out the obvious hypocrisy, just agreeing that I should sacrifice more of my own lifestyle to better support theirs. Then came the business opportunity. Danny calls all excited about some crypto trading scheme from a YouTube video. He needs $5,000 to get started and promises to pay everything back in 6 months. "Think of it as investing in our future," he says. Jessica's really good with numbers. Jessica, good with numbers. The same Jessica who overdrafts buying coffee. I said no. First time I'd ever refused anything they asked. Big mistake. The next day, I get this long text message from Jessica. We're talking multiple paragraphs about how disappointed she was in me, how she thought I was the kind of woman who supports family dreams, but was starting to see my true colors. The message was crafted like she'd spent hours writing and rewriting it for maximum emotional impact. She questioned my motives for helping them in the first place, suggesting that maybe I only did it to feel superior or maintain control over their lives. She accused me of sabotaging Danny's growth and holding back his potential by not believing in his ideas. The message ended with her saying she was reevaluating what kind of relationship we had and whether I was really family or just someone who helps when it's convenient. Then she started posting passive-aggressive content on social media about fake family members and people who act generous but have strings attached. Never mentioned names, but the timing was obvious, and anyone who knew our situation understood exactly who she meant. Posts like, "It's amazing how some people will help you just enough to feel good about themselves, but not enough to actually make a difference in your life. You really find out who your real family is when you need support to chase your dreams. Some people want to keep you small because your success threatens them." This went on for weeks. Every few days, another post about loyalty, about conditional love, about people who help with one hand and hold you back with the other. Jessica making little comments during family gatherings about how some people only help when it's convenient for them. Danny acting like I was being unreasonable for not funding their latest get-rich-quick scheme. Final straw came when they asked me to co-sign a $45,000 loan for a brand new BMW because Jessica needed reliable transportation and their Honda wasn't professional enough for her networking events. When I said absolutely not, Jessica lost it. "You're just jealous," she screamed. "You're jealous that Danny has someone who believes in him while you're alone in that house." She wasn't wrong about me being alone. I'd been single about a year, partly from working so much, partly from spending free time dealing with their financial emergencies. "You want to keep us dependent," she continued. "You like feeling superior. Well, guess what? We don't need your charity anymore." The opportunities turned out to be Danny delivering food, which he quit after a week because Jessica said it was embarrassing. That conversation changed everything. I started seeing how they really viewed me. Not as family helping family, but as some pathetic sucker they could manipulate for money. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. After the BMW incident, I realized I needed to document everything. These parasites had gotten too comfortable, and Jessica was getting bolder with her disrespect. First, I started tracking every payment, every emergency, every promise to pay me back. Made a spreadsheet with dates, amounts, and justifications. 11 months of data showed I'd given them over $24,000 total. Rent, groceries, car repairs, vet bills, everything. More importantly, I started monitoring their social media. Holy crap, was that eye-opening. While I'm working 50-hour weeks to afford their lifestyle, Jessica's posting stories about expensive restaurants, shopping hauls, and spa days with equally useless friends. Danny's LinkedIn was full of entrepreneur mindset posts and motivational quotes, despite never applying for jobs. Most infuriating, Jessica started an Instagram called Building Our Empire, documenting their journey of creating wealth and financial freedom. Not one mention of who funded this empire. She had hundreds of followers eating up her fake content, giving advice on investment strategies and passive income. These people thought she was some financial guru when she couldn't balance a checkbook. Through her posts, I learned about their real expenses: $300 brunches, $150 Target trips, $80 candles from boutique stores. They spent like millionaires while I covered basic living costs. That's when I started testing them. Told Danny I was having cash flow issues and needed to reduce rent help to $200 instead of the full $1,850 just to see their reaction. The response was immediate and exactly what I expected. Jessica posted Instagram stories about fair weather friends and people who abandon you when things get tough. Danny called, acting hurt about me changing the deal. "We've been counting on this, sis," he said. "You can't just pull the rug out." Counting on it, like it was their salary instead of my charity. The beautiful part? Instead of cutting spending to make up the $650 difference, they doubled down. Went out for Jessica's birthday at some steakhouse that weekend. Posted pictures of $40 cocktails and $200 dinner tabs. They were so used to my money solving problems, they couldn't comprehend budgeting. That's when I knew they needed complete destruction. Not just cutting off, total annihilation. Because people like this don't learn from consequences, they find new victims. I started making calls. My buddy who works in property management gave insight into eviction proceedings. My cousin at the county explained business license requirements. My neighbor, who's a retired cop, taught me about debt collection laws. I was building a toolkit. But the real breakthrough came when I was at their place discussing money, and Jessica stepped out for nails. Danny started venting about stress, how nothing worked out, how he felt like a failure. For a moment, I almost felt bad. Then he said something that changed everything. Sometimes I think you like keeping us struggling, like it makes you feel important. This guy, this absolute piece of garbage who'd been living off my generosity for almost a year, was suggesting I was manipulating them by not giving enough money. That's when I realized Danny wasn't Jessica's victim. He was equally entitled and delusional. He genuinely believed I owed them support, and any limitations were me being controlling. The victim act was manipulation too. That night, I decided I wasn't just cutting them off. I was ensuring they fell so hard they'd never recover. And I was going to enjoy every minute of it. The moment I decided to completely destroy them came at Dad's 60th birthday party. Dad specifically wanted something low-key. Family, burgers on the grill, simple stuff. Jessica couldn't just show up and be normal. She walked in wearing some designer dress that probably cost more than Dad's birthday budget, carrying expensive wine. She made sure everyone noticed. Danny got Dad a Home Depot gift card, which was actually thoughtful since Dad loves projects. But Jessica had to make a speech. "I want everyone to know how grateful Danny and I are for such supportive family," she announced, standing up mid-dinner like anyone asked. "Especially Angela, who's been amazing helping us get our business off the ground." Business. She called their non-existent income a business. "It's rare finding people who understand the entrepreneurial journey and invest in family dreams," she continued, looking at me with this fake smile. My face got hot. She was making it sound like I was a business partner instead of their personal bank. Worse, she was doing this in front of my parents who didn't know the full extent of what I'd been paying. But she wasn't done. Danny's been working so hard on his cryptocurrency portfolio, and I've been developing our social media presence. We're really building something special. Cryptocurrency portfolio, social media presence, her words for gambling with money they didn't have, and posting selfies on Instagram. Mom looked confused. "I thought you were looking for regular work, Danny." "Well, Mom, the traditional job market isn't where opportunities are anymore," Danny said, falling into Jessica's nonsense. "We're focused on creating multiple income streams and building long-term wealth." Dad, who worked 30 years in a factory to support his family, just stared. "What exactly do you do all day?" he asked. Jessica laughed condescendingly. "It's complicated, Mr. Thompson. The digital economy requires different work ethic. It's about working smarter, not harder. Working smarter, not harder," to a man who'd done physical labor for 3 decades. The table went quiet. Mom looked embarrassed. Dad looked angry. Danny sat there nodding like Jessica was dropping wisdom. That's when Jessica made her fatal mistake. "I mean, some people are content with old ways," she said, glancing at Dad. "But Danny and I are building something bigger. We're not settling for paycheck-to-paycheck living." Paycheck-to-paycheck living. She said this to my parents, who'd worked their entire lives to give us everything. Dad's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "Excuse me?" "I think it's important having vision," Jessica said, not reading the room. "Thinking beyond trading time for money." "You mean like having an actual job?" Dad asked. "Well, jobs are fine for some people," Jessica said with that condescending tone. "But we're entrepreneurs. We create value instead of just doing what we're told." The silence was deafening. Mom stood up, clearing plates, which she does when trying not to say something she'll regret. Dad stared at Jessica like she was an alien. Danny kept nodding along like she made perfect sense. "Besides," Jessica continued, apparently unable to recognize when to shut up, "we're lucky having family support during growth phase. Angela understands that investment in us is really investment in the family's future." That's when I snapped. "What investment?" I asked. Jessica looked confused. "Well, the support you've been giving while we build our—" "You mean the rent money I pay because you're both too lazy to get jobs?" The whole table froze. "I wouldn't call it lazy," Jessica said defensively. "We're working toward—" "What exactly are you working toward, Jessica?" Because for 11 months I've paid your bills while you post Instagram stories about being an entrepreneur. What business do you actually have? Well, we're in development phase of, you don't have a business, you don't have income, you don't have a plan, you have my money and an Instagram account. Danny finally spoke. Come on, sis, don't do this here. Don't do what? Tell the truth? You want truth, Dad? I've paid $1,850 monthly for their rent because Danny can't keep a Best Buy job and Jessica thinks she's too good to work anywhere. Mom stopped in the kitchen doorway. Dad's face went red. 11 months, I continued. Over 24 grand. Instead of saying thank you or getting their act together, they asked me to co-sign car loans and give attitude about not helping enough. Jessica's fake composure cracked. That's not fair, Angela. We never asked you to. Nonsense. You've asked for everything. Rent, food, car repairs, vet bills. Every time I help, you act like I'm not doing enough. We're grateful, but... Grateful? You posted on Instagram last week about fake family members who help with strings attached. Oh, was that gratitude? She turned bright red. And you, I said to Danny. You told me I like keeping you struggling because it makes me feel important. Does that sound grateful? Dad slammed his hand on the table. Are you serious? Angela's been paying your rent and you're complaining? It's complicated, Dad, Danny said weakly. No, it's not, Dad shot back. Your sister works her tail off at a real job to pay for your apartment while you sit around pretending to be a businessman. What's complicated about that? Jessica started fake crying. I don't understand why everyone's being so mean. We're trying our best. Your best? Mom said from the kitchen. Your best is taking money from your sister while insulting her father. That's when I stood up. You know what? You're right, Jessica. I am done helping with strings attached. The string is showing basic respect and gratitude. Since you can't do that, we're done. I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, and canceled the recurring payment right there. 11 months of my money, and you can't even pretend to be thankful. Figure it out yourselves. Jessica started sobbing. Danny looked like someone punched him. Angela, wait, let's talk, Danny said. Nope, we're done talking. You've got until month's end to figure out your own rent. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. This is going to destroy us, Jessica wailed. I turned back one last time. Good. The first week after cutting them off was beautiful. Radio silence from both of them. No angry texts, no guilt trips, no emergency calls, just pure, blissful quiet. I figured they were either finding another sucker or still convinced I was bluffing. Either way, I enjoyed the peace. But their social media told a different story. Jessica's Instagram went from daily entrepreneur lifestyle content to sporadic, desperate manifesting abundance garbage. Danny stopped posting motivational LinkedIn quotes and went completely dark. By week 2, panic set in. Danny called Tuesday night trying to sound casual. Hey, sis, just checking in. How are things? Good, you? Yeah, good. Listen, I know you were upset at Dad's party, and I get it. Maybe we could grab coffee and talk things through. Nothing to talk through. You made clear how you feel about my help. Come on, you know we appreciate everything you've done. Do I? Because Jessica spent Dad's birthday explaining how paycheck to paycheck living is for losers who lack vision. That sound appreciative? Long pause. She didn't mean it like that. How did she mean it, Danny? Another pause. Look, can we just work something out? Just until... Until what? Until you find another family member to leech off? That's not fair. What's not fair is me paying your bills 11 months while you insult my work ethic and family. Figure it out yourself. I hung up. Next day, Jessica tried a different approach. She showed up at my work parking lot after my shift. Clearly been crying. Mascara streaked, red eyes, the whole production. Angela, we need to talk, she said. Deal. No, we don't. Please, I know I said things that came out wrong, but you're misunderstanding the situation. Am I? Yes. I never meant disrespecting your parents. I was explaining our business model and it came out wrong. What business model, Jessica? Explain it. She started stammering about building their brand and developing revenue streams, but couldn't give one concrete income example. So your business model is taking my money while posting on Instagram? It's more complicated than that. No, it's really not. You want me paying bills so you can play pretend entrepreneur. When I ask for basic gratitude, you act like I'm controlling. I am grateful. We both are. Then why did you post about fake family members with strings attached? That wasn't about you. Who else was it about? She couldn't answer. Jessica, here's the thing. You and Danny spent 11 months treating me like a bank account instead of family. Now you're dealing with consequences. It stinks, but that's life. But the apartment is your problem. You signed the lease. We can't afford it without your help. Then you should have thought about that before biting the hand that feeds you. I got in my truck and drove away, leaving her standing there. By week 3, real desperation kicked in. Danny started calling daily. When I stopped answering, he moved to texts. Long, rambling messages about how sorry he was, how Jessica influenced his thinking, how he knew he'd messed up. But here's the beautiful part. He started applying for jobs. My buddy who works in property management called me laughing. Dude, some guy named Danny Thompson just applied for maintenance at one of our complexes. Says he's your brother and needs work immediately. Should I hire him? Up to you, I said. But don't do me favors. Treat him like any other applicant. Oh, I will. But get this. He listed cryptocurrency trading and social media management as recent work experience. I almost choked. Meanwhile, Jessica's Instagram stories became increasingly unhinged. Posts about financial setbacks being tests from the universe, about removing toxic people from your life. She even started a GoFundMe for their housing crisis that raised exactly $47 from 3 people. Best part was watching her spin their situation as a spiritual journey. Sometimes the universe removes false support to help find true strength. She posted over a picture of herself crying in their car. False support. My $24,000 was false support. Real karma came when one of Jessica's boss babe friends started commenting, asking for business specifics. When Jessica couldn't provide details, the friend called her out publicly. Wait, so you've been posting about being an entrepreneur but don't actually have a business? And your boyfriend's sister was paying your rent? Girl, that's not entrepreneurship. That's being a sugar baby with extra steps. Jessica deleted the comment and went private, but screenshots live forever. By month's end, Danny had taken the maintenance job. $12 hourly fixing toilets and unclogging drains. Far cry from his entrepreneur phase, but honest work. Jessica was forced to move back with her parents after the eviction. Apparently, her dad had choice words about her business model when he found out what really happened. But I wasn't done. Not even close. 3 months into their new reality, I thought Danny was starting to figure things out. He'd kept the maintenance job, stopped posting nonsense online, seemed to be accepting that actual work was required to pay bills. I was wrong. Wake-up call came when my cousin mentioned seeing Danny at a casino Saturday night. Not just there, but at poker tables with what looked like several hundred in chips. This, while supposedly broke and struggling to rebuild. I did some digging and found Danny had gotten a credit card and was using it for investment opportunities, which apparently meant gambling and day trading with money he didn't have. Jessica, meanwhile, had started a new Instagram from her parents' house, calling herself a mindset coach and selling $50 PDFs about overcoming financial trauma. The irony was incredible. They hadn't learned anything, just found new ways to avoid real responsibility. That's when I decided to teach them a lesson they'd never forget. First, I called my buddy and told him what Danny was doing with his paychecks. My buddy, being a good manager, had a conversation with Danny about financial responsibility. When Danny got defensive, saying it wasn't his boss's business what he did with money, my buddy fired him on the spot. Can't have someone working maintenance who makes poor money decisions, he told me later. What if he steals from tenants or gets desperate? Next, I reached out to Jessica's dad through a mutual acquaintance. Turned out he didn't know about her mindset coaching business or that she was scamming people online. When he found out his daughter was running fake business schemes from his house, he kicked her out. But the real masterpiece was what I did with their debt. During those 11 months when I paid their rent, Danny and Jessica had racked up about $16,000 in credit card debt. They'd hidden it from me, obviously, but financial records are surprisingly accessible when you know where to look. I bought their debt through a debt collection company my neighbor connected me with. I purchased their outstanding credit card debt for about 30 cents on the dollar, completely legal. Suddenly, I owned their financial future. First notice they got was a letter informing them that their debt had been transferred to Thompson Recovery Services. They probably didn't notice the last name initially, but when they missed their first payment, inevitable since Danny had just lost his job, they got a call from me. Hello, this is Angela Thompson from Thompson Recovery Services. I'm calling about your outstanding debt in the amount of $16,247.83. Silence on Danny's end was beautiful. Angela, what the heck is this? This is a debt collection call. Danny, you owe money, and I bought your debt, completely legal. You can't be serious. Dead serious. You've got 30 days to pay in full, or we'll proceed with legal action. This is insane. You're my sister. Correction. I was your sister. You and Jessica made clear that family doesn't matter when money's involved, so now we're just debtor and creditor. What made it better was that I had every legal right to pursue aggressive collection, phone calls, letters, wage garnishment. If Danny found another job, I could make their lives absolutely miserable, and it was perfectly legitimate. But the real genius move was what I did next. I started posting updates about their situation on Facebook. Just wanted to thank everyone who supported my decision to stop enabling certain family members. For those asking how they're doing, Danny lost his job for gambling with his paycheck, and Jessica got kicked out of her parents' house for running fake business scams. Sometimes tough love works exactly like it's supposed to. I tagged them both. Comments were brutal. People they'd gone to high school with, old coworkers, family, friends. Everyone started sharing their own stories about Danny and Jessica's entitled behavior over the years. Turned out I wasn't the only one they'd treated badly. Danny's former boss commented about how he'd quit his tire shop job by just not showing up. One of Jessica's old friends shared screenshots of her asking for money for emergencies that turned out to be shopping trips. The post got shared 47 times. In our small town, that might as well have been viral. Within a week, Danny couldn't go anywhere without people knowing exactly what kind of person he was. Grocery store, gas station, even the unemployment office. Everyone knew he was the loser who'd burned his own sister. Jessica tried defending herself in comments, which only made things worse. She wrote this long paragraph about family loyalty and private matters, but people roasted her harder. Maybe try getting a job instead of typing essays on Facebook, one person commented. Imagine being 28 years old and getting kicked out of your parents' house for being a scammer, wrote another. But the best comment came from Dad. Sometimes children need to learn that actions have consequences. Better late than never. That's when they finally broke. The calls started Wednesday night, 7 months after I'd cut them off. Not angry calls this time. Desperate ones. Danny called first. His voice was different. Smaller. Broken. Angela, please, we need to talk. I know I messed up. I know we both messed up, but this has gone too far. Has it gone too far? Because I remember you saying I liked keeping you struggling to feel important. I was wrong. I was so wrong about everything. Where's Jessica? Gone. She left last week when the debt collection stuff started. Said this was all my fault for not managing family relationships properly. I almost laughed. Even in the end, Jessica couldn't take responsibility. Where are you living? My car. I've been sleeping in my car for 4 days. Good. Where's your entrepreneurial spirit now, Danny? Please don't do this. I'm begging you. I'll do anything, anything. I'll get a job, any job. I'll pay you back every penny. I'll work 3 jobs if I have to. Just please help me. But I wasn't done yet. You know what's funny, Danny? For 11 months, I paid your bills and asked for nothing except basic respect. And you couldn't even give me that. I know. I was a jerk. You were worse than a jerk. You were an ungrateful piece of garbage who bit the hand that fed you. And Jessica? Jessica was a gold-digging user who thought she was too good to work at McDonald's, but not too proud to take my money. You're right about everything. Now I'm homeless, jobless, and she left me the second things got hard. How's that working out? Silence, except for what sounded like crying. Angela, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You were the best sister anyone could ask for, and I threw it away because I'm a selfish idiot. The crying was definitely real now. I miss you. I miss having a sister. I miss having family. I know I don't deserve it, but please, I'm drowning here. That's when I delivered the final blow. You want to know the really messed up part, Danny? I could fix all of this today. I could pay off your debt, get you an apartment, help you find a decent job. I've got the money and connections. Please. But I'm not going to. You know why? Why? Because you need to learn that actions have consequences. For 11 months, you treated me like garbage while I supported your worthless life. Now you get to see what life looks like without me. Angela, please, I'll do anything. I'll grovel. I'll apologize publicly. I'll work for you for free, whatever you want. I don't want anything from you, Danny. That's the point. You burned that bridge so completely that there's nothing left to rebuild. You're my sister. No, I was your sister. You made clear that family only mattered when you needed something. So now you're just some loser who owes me money. The sobbing got heavier. I can't do this anymore, Angela. I can't live like this. Then don't. Get a job. Any job. Work your way back up from the bottom like everyone else has to do. Figure out how to be a functioning adult instead of a parasite. What if I can't? Then you'll fail, and that'll be entirely your fault. I hung up and blocked his number. But the story doesn't end there. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Dad. Danny had shown up at his house, cleaned up and wearing a McDonald's uniform. He got a job. Dad said Danny asked if he could stay in the basement until he saves up for an apartment deposit. Said he wanted to prove he could change. What did you tell him? I asked. I told him he could stay, but any nonsense, and he's out. No second chances. Think he'll stick with it? We'll see. But Angela, what you did was harsh. It was necessary. Maybe, but he's still your brother. He stopped being my brother when he chose Jessica and easy money over family loyalty. This is just him dealing with consequences of that choice. Dad was quiet for a minute. Fair enough. But if he does turn his life around, you might want to think about forgiveness. We'll see. 4 months later, Danny's still at McDonald's, still living in Dad's basement, still working his tail off to rebuild his life from nothing. Jessica. Last I heard, she married some 50-year-old divorced guy she met on a sugar daddy website. Guess she found her next target.